What's going on, gentlemen, ladies, gentlemen, Sharky Waters Nation here on a beautiful Thursday morning in October. The location where dreams come to fruition. Jabby Cap in the chat, what's up, brother? Less people file in the door here. Had a malpractice video before, was trying to figure out the internet chat, the YouTube video. Obviously, a lot of things that I'm trying to figure out on this new platform, but as I said, the place where dreams are made. And what I mean by that is the fact that happiness exists in conversation, and the target and goal of these chats is pure conversation. So please engage the chat. I want people to give me any questions, and questions are not arbitrary. You guys know this. They're very much centered in sports and, in life and really whatever's going on. But what I mean by arbitrary is I see on Twitter and I see on YouTube very consistently guys saying, ask me anything. And I will say this about that arbitrarily, just something that I see from the periphery. When people say, ask me anything, oftentimes it means they're bored in a hotel room or an airport and they're just doing sort of arbitrary content. This is not arbitrary content. This is what I love to do. I love to talk to you guys about whatever is going on in our life. And as I said, sports, life, and whatever. So let's discuss it. Let's dive in and let's fucking absolutely dominate. And we got my guy 29 in the chat, Bobby Candyman. And as Guns Pick says, Bob the Candyman can warn. And Noah Burley, what's up, brother? Dabby Kevin House, my guy. And as I know, middle of the night here, we're going to be figuring out who's alive and who's not, taking a beer. As I said before, my favorite beer, this is what I want to do on this channel. I want to have one beer over the course of a period of time. I had one beer the last time I had a chat, and that took us 90 minutes to get through there, and a lot of conversation, a lot of sports picks, discerning analytics, and the whole situation. So cheers to you guys. I appreciate you guys' extreme levels of positive energy. Cheers up, fears down. Let's go. Delicious as always. Not delirium tremol. High alive. Give you guys a still there. High alive, one of my favorite beers. Probably not my favorite beer of all time, if I'm being perfectly honest. But local to Florida, just a great IPA, very smooth, 7.5%. Really, really nice. Really nice. And yeah, it's a great beer. I mean, delirium is obviously excellent. But not my regular beer. This is my regular beer. I drink this a couple nights a week when I want to hang out and just have a six-pack, watch the games for a few hours and just, take in the environment, see what's going on. So taking a breath and let's see what's going on in the chat. We got 4 people in here. I feel like this is a personal conversation, and that's, it's how you build a channel, and it's what I did in the beginning of Sharky Waters Nation Part 1 on Twitter. So it's a beautiful blessing regardless, and I don't take it for granted. I love you guys so much. How's the weather in Florida? It's starting to get into the fall, which I think is actually such a nice reprieve. I think, it's very generic, very sort of rhetorical to say, Florida's always beautiful. The summertime in Florida is treacherous. There's no way around it. It burns you down almost. Going outside during the day can be extremely fortuitous on your body and really difficult. We're starting to get into a nicer plan of air and just cleaner air. So just to answer your question, it's been very nice recently in the last couple of weeks, and I'm so thrilled for that, honestly, because anybody who lives in Florida or lives in temperate to equatorial climates knows that the summertime can be really, really difficult and treacherous, unintentionally for us, because when you move to these areas, you expect nice weather and you think to yourself it's always going to be really nice and it's going to just give you a good energy, the warmth and the whole thing. But the summertime humidity, it can be really desolate and hot and unbreathable to a certain degree. So it's nice to finally come off that wind or lack thereof, but that heat integration. Dabby, my guy, appreciate you so much, brother. Yeah, bro, it's the same general climate. It really is. And it's this false narrative that does come across the country where people think, oh, it's so nice to be down there. It's warm, doesn't get cold, this and that. And it's like, the summertime is so unbelievably intense with the humidity. It's, you see, I think even in one of the, one of the most, I think, clean examples of it, you have a dog you have animals outside, they can't breathe. Animals got to be inside. And, animals tell us one of the most, fluid narrative points in terms of what's going on in the world. Human beings are great at telling basically the false narrative for a second, but I mean, animals just say straight up, that's what it is. Um, Ajax, what up, brother? Ajax, you tell me how to pronounce it. See if we get some more people in the chat here. Guys, drop a retweet on Twitter if you don't mind. Brings people in here. Just tell them that we're having a chat. We're just hanging out. One of the best things that I truly have loved to do since the beginning of content is just having conversation with you guys. It's one of those interesting points that people love shows. I mean, Dabby's a great example of this. Dabby and I love doing shows. We love content. We love professionalism. But you know what we love more? We love conversation. We love hanging out. And I've been missing this, and I've had to take a step back because of a lot of things going on in my personal life. But I'm going to be bringing back these personal chats on YouTube on a regular basis. And it's something that I love to do at the highest level because I feel like in this life, there's so much isolation of people. And if I could do one thing in my life, I would just give the ability for people to hang out and have a good time and really chat about it in the process. So that's what we're doing here. We're not stopping anytime soon. It is the beginning. Gonna take a sip of beer and let's fire up the conversation, guys, and let's get some more people in here. And let's see if we can get 20 people in here on a beautiful Thursday morning here. Cheers to you guys. I appreciate you guys immensely. Dana Beer, Wild, what up, brother? Bills, Jags. I do not smoke. Dabby smokes. He's the man with that shit. He is the man with that shit. Smoking and I think, drinking and just in general, what it is in life. I don't know the average age of people that, interact. I think you guys are probably somewhere between 20 and 40. And even within 20 and 40, it's kind of it's a wild, disparate point of people. But, for me, like when I smoked in high school a couple of times, I didn't like it. Me and Dab can disagree on that. Dab's my guy. I love him to death. But it doesn't fuck me like that, and it's like one of those things with drinking fucks with me, right? Like it makes me feel good. Like I just get a good buzz off it. And I think that's a really interesting point about different substances and what you do and what you think. It's one of those things where certain things just really interact with certain people better from a biological standpoint. And Benny Rash in the house, what up, brother? Appreciate you, man. Love you, man. But I will say that having seen life, for almost 40 years myself, I just have come to the conclusion that I think that there's not really any big time solution that just governs everybody. I think everybody to a certain degree has their own unique template of happiness, and substance does really come into that equation as well. It's what do you mess with? What do you hang out with? Like, if you're just stone sober, bless you at the highest level. If you're not, what do you do? What's your choice? Why? How does it make you feel? How do the other things make you feel? And I think it's an interesting conversation because I think it's very genetic. And I don't think it's about, what you did in high school or what the clique told you to do. I think it's kind of how you feel throughout your entire life. And, for me, it's been alcohol. And obviously, I've made some mistakes drinking alcohol. I'm not going to deny that. But, I think that with all vices and with all things that are potentially theoretical vices, if you can get to a point of middle ground with them, they will help you because they will make you feel more free and peaceful in your moment. And I know that's what Dabby does with marijuana. And I know you guys who smoke and you guys who have all these different, products and plants and, really a beautiful thing. That's what you do. You hang out, you enjoy your life. It's an access point to your life. And I think it's an interesting point of conversation. I know certain people don't agree. I think that's the beauty of life. Conversation wins always. And Michael Martinez, my guy. Appreciate you, man. I'm 38. I just turned 38 in August. I got to cut my hair up a little bit. Part of the reason why I have the hair like dragging over my face is just because with these fucking haircuts, you got to blow dry your shit. Don't get me started on the fucking products, but I'm 38. I was born in 1985, and I'm the same way with you, brother. I used to really feel like shit when I drank, and now I drink less. I've really made a very significant move in my life to drink less six-pack, maybe one or two more light beers, no more. And I don't feel particularly bad. I will say this, I do drink a glass of water for every single beer. I'm so unbelievably hydrated. I mean, it's ridiculous, literally. Like I'm just going in and out constantly, beer, water, and taking a piss every 45 minutes. But that has become the solution in my existence point. It's drinking certain beers that you can filter properly, getting a buzz, feeling good, but also drinking water one for one. I think that will help you quite a bit. Um, just my own experience because I definitely come from hangovers as well and just feeling like shit. Where you drink too much, you don't drink water, you feel like ass. You're dehydrated for a period of time or whatever. No doubt, bro. My God, 100%. I know our generation for sure, and I would say that just drink water one for one, and find a beer that you can digest. It's also weird because obviously you're marketed hundreds of different beers, all different types of beers. Certain things can get your body better and give you a nice buzz and not really have an effect on you, and other things will really bring you down. So I think it's experimental to a certain degree. Like I know, for example, this High Alive for me in Florida, it's just a great beer. I don't really get hungover drinking it. If I have a six-pack of this over 6-7 hours, some glass of water, good buzz, just chilling out. So I think that's kind of the goal we're going for with that. Yeah, yeah, 100%, bro. Pliny the Elder is great. It's a little heavier though. What, 8.5, I think. Um, yeah, that'll see, and I think that's another thing about beers is that the ABV it seems like nothing in terms of the difference, but I think it makes a huge difference. Actually, I think every 0.5% makes a huge difference. For me, 7.5 is the golden zone. Eight's okay. 8.5 starts to jump. Nine gets there. 9.5, you're getting fucking wasted. So I think that there's a lot of different things. And I think the subtlety is very real. And I've become aware of that over the course of the last 25 years drinking. I mean, it's a long process in your life to figure out what you really need to be doing. But I do think 7.5 is my niche. It's where I'm comfortable. But I think it is tough to put down multiple 8.5s. Benjamin Rash, my God, appreciate it, man. Yeah, I mean I think that was at least reviewed once or twice, maybe more, as supposedly the top beer domestically in the United States, something like that, right? Um, yeah, your bar. I gotta get that hat back, bro. I should fucking be rocking that right now. Um, yeah, no, it's a great beer, without question. Great beer, so palatable, so palatable. But I do think the 8.5 does get a little heavy. I think if you take it down even to 7.5, it does make a difference for sure. My guy Dan Beer, Greg Wall says Packers smash spot. Monday Night Football. I'm not sure. Honestly, I think that's a tough one. Yeah, Bobby, 100%, brother. No doubt. You have to understand. You kind of have to know yourself, and I think it's so interesting because when you come up in the game when you're a young kid, everybody tells you exactly what to do, and you have no freedom to figure out what the fuck your actual self is. And at the time, you have no idea. And then people are telling you what to do and go off track. And sometimes people never figure out their life and, the duration of their entire life. Sometimes you do find it. And I really believe that, if you do find it for yourself, whether you're 20, 30, 40, 60, 80, 100, whoever, you've won the game. Because when you start to really find your own equilibrium and you really start to find who you are as a person, and that's how much you need to sleep, how much you need to work out, how much you need to eat, how much water you should be drinking, how much sunlight you should be getting, what beer you want to drink. If you want to smoke weed, please do. Whatever you're doing, as long as you're not taking pharmaceutical drugs, I will say that. That's not in the game. Shit has to be organic. Your remedy has to be organic. You cannot get in the pharmaceutical game. The pharmaceutical game will ruin you. And it will ruin you in dependency and your mental game. And there was a beautiful documentary on Netflix about Purdue Pharma and the OxyContin crisis that obviously started about 35, 40 years ago in this country. But that is one of the things that I will always be so passionate about. the pharmaceutical drug game will ruin you. It will ruin you. Getting a six pack, smoking some weed will not ruin you. Pharmaceutical drugs will ruin you. And it's systemized, and it's disgusting in a lot of ways to watch the profit margin within corporate America go up as the health of the constituent base in that context go down to lethal standards. It's not arbitrary, and it's disgusting. Exactly, brother. Bobby, you know what I'm talking about, bro. You've been in and out of the hospital. You know the drugs. I'm telling you, man, it sucks. It's the worst thing. You never want to be on drugs. Like it just makes you. It sucks the life out of you. It sucks the life out of the mind and your mind and your body. It makes you so unbelievably subconsciously dependent, and it's really a difficult thing. 100%. It makes you so dependent and lacking self determinism, which is pretty much the gateway to personal happiness, self determinism. And when you start to get on prescription drugs, uppers, downers, painkillers, whatever they may be, it takes away your personal level of evaluation and your own ability to determine your own existence. And I'm saying that with passion because I've seen that in my life with people around me, and it's ruined people that I care about immensely. So bless you guys for listening to this conversation because it's a really big thing. I mean, it's something that I've talked about numerous times, but I think it's very important to keep talking about is that part of the reason when you walk around society and you feel a very dull level of energy in people, and that's in public, just walking around on the streets, sidewalks, coffee shops, grocery stores, whatever. People are prescribed. People are dull. They are nullified in their existence because of their prescriptions. And they become lacking in humans in terms of their human nature. Their human nature gets sucked out of them. And it's disgusting to watch. And there's no way around it. And I don't want to belabor this topic. It's not something that I love at all. I hate it, but I do think it has to be discussed because I think that, especially guys that we all hang out with here in Sharky Waters Nation, my guys in the chat, please drop more comments in the chat. If you're not discussing, introduce yourself, talk to us, This is so open for business in terms of conversation. Tell us what's going on. This is full life right here. But this is not talked about enough. Too many people are on this stuff. They hide it. They're ashamed of themselves. They can't say, I don't like it. They get so interwebbed in it. And it holds them back in such a negative way. It's shackling to so many people who never have the outlet to even speak about it. And they just feel so clustered in their own environment. And ultimately they're living a suboptimal life. And one of the things that I'm incredibly passionate about is the fact that if you're a person in this world, it is a blessing to be a human being. It shouldn't be a burden. If you're a human being and you're here, if you feel like your life is stressful or somehow burdensome, that is a conversation within itself to figure out how to not feel like it's a burden to be here, because it is a blessing to be a human being. We are the most gifted level of species in the history of the world. We are by far the most intellectual species ever to be created on this planet. And the fact that people feel like it's a burden to be here just speaks to how mismanaged lives can become very quickly by systemic academia, pharmaceuticals, peer pressure, and a whole bunch of other things. And I think it's very difficult to watch sometimes because great people become saddened people very quickly because of the process of life in a really stressful environment. So it's always wide open. Ben Stevens, what's up, brother? Appreciate it, man. Fernando Tiznato, my guy. Appreciate you, man. Cheers to you guys. Appreciate you guys. Yeah. Benny, I'm right there with you. I haven't done white drugs since I was probably 35. I used to joke about it on this channel, and it's funny. I used to kind of fuck around in this channel a little bit, and I would joke around about that. That's not what I do actually, and people thought I was all over the place and whatever the fuck. But I was kind of like trying to figure out how to run a channel, and one of the things I will say that I have worked on throughout my process within media, I didn't really know how to run media. And I saw guys like Dave Portnoy like promoting a bunch of bullshit, drug use, alcohol use, degenerate gambling, being an asshole basically. And when you start a channel and you have no experience, especially if you're, you really want to grow. Like I thought to myself, at least at one point in time over the course of 5 years, maybe that's the angle I should go. I'll just party, I'll bullshit people, I'll play rap music, I'll jump around, I'll be like that. Because I can do that if I want. It's not who I am as a person, but I can definitely put on like that for a half an hour, twice a week. And the thing is, I realize there's a large portion of the internet that does connect with that, but then your brand becomes a brand of hostility, and it becomes a brand of people that are just really miserable. And I never realized that until I did it. And the crazy thing is, some of the things with media that you have to do, you have to try stuff out. And I tried it all out for the most part. I mean, I've done a lot, and I do feel very, very peaceful talking to you guys right here on this beautiful Thursday morning, feeling like I've gone through it, and I feel like I've seen things, and I've obviously had a channel pulled from me because of a spat of anger that was, not representative of who I am as a person at all. But again, just a template to the internet and the internet life and the whole thing. And I think that I look back in my life and I template my life and I think to myself, you're right where you need to be. And I think that's a very peaceful place for a person to be, to actually say to yourself, you're right where you need to be. And for me, that's how I feel. I feel like I've seen a lot, I've gone through a lot, I've experienced partners, relationships, this, and that. I feel like it all came to a reasoning point over the last few years. And I feel like we're right where we need to be here on this Thursday morning having this conversation. So taking a breath, and I appreciate you guys immensely for that. Emal, what's up, brother? My man, appreciate you, bro. And as I'm saying, it really is that, it's not easy to say to yourself, you're coming to a place of stillness in your life. And I do feel that. So I appreciate you guys being along for the ride. Benny Rash, my guy, says, be real and organic. That's it. That's all. The audience you connect with will find you regardless of the size. 1K or 1 million, it's irrelevant. You're absolutely right. I completely agree with you. And I think one of the better points within that comment is that it's not about how many people find you. It's about how many people connect with you. And the internet is such a fraudulent place from the standpoint that there's so many accounts that seem big but have no follower base. And there's smaller accounts that have deep organic saturation and connection. And I think that's what we have here in Sharky Waters Nation. I appreciate you guys so much for connecting with the energy, the conversation, and what we're doing at all points in time. Scotty Archer, what up, brother? Appreciate it, man. Cheers to you, bro. It's been too long. You're an amazing human being. Hope you're succeeding so much up there in the structure. I know you've gone through a bunch of things with the infrastructure, the competitive shit, and the bullshit. So cheers, bro. Been a long time, man. And yeah, Bob, I mean, that's something that I adopted going back, I don't know, about 3 or 4 years ago. I said to the group chat before about meditation. I got meditation through doing yoga a lot. I used to do yoga about 5 days a week. Now I do it 6 or 7 days a week. It's part of my daily practice in life. I always do yoga. Yoga centers my mind and my body every day. I probably couldn't live without it. I mean, not literally. Don't mean to be massively hyperbolic, but it really is an incredibly therapeutic thing mentally and physically as one practice within itself. But the thing that yoga really taught me is to find happiness where you are. And that is something we're not taught. We are taught that there's a better place, that there is a trophy in the future, that there are destinations on the calendar that are more important and therefore happier mostly within that scope of evaluation. And therefore, there's no happiness in the moments that go towards it. So you have months of mediocrity leading up to it, and you start to identify with this mediocrity and this unhappiness and this purgatory of nothingness. And when you start to really actualize your life in your mind, you realize your entire life are these supposed nothingness moments. And the trophy moments are so fleeting, so one in a million, so unsustainable, never going to live up to what you actually thought they were in the first place. So unbelievably reliant on somebody else to make them big for you anyway. So if you live for those moments and you live for somebody else telling you you're great or giving you some sort of big surprise or some sort of energy you don't have yourself, you're never going to find personal happiness. And I used to live that life. I was an unhappy person. And I found yoga. I started meditating. I started connecting with the inside of your brain as an instrument where you don't necessarily realize this. Whatever you tell yourself, you become. You become a player in the game if you say, I'm a player in the game. If you say, I'm a nobody, you become a nobody. And you can start to tell yourself positive things. More important than saying, I'm a player, small things. Instead of saying, you know what? Maybe you don't say this to yourself, but you are confused. You are floundering around. Some of the most positive things you can say to yourself, I trust you, yourself. I trust you. You've done your best. You always did your best. You didn't always know the right solution, but you did your best. Therefore, I trust you, the person. And when you say that to yourself, and you actually look at yourself in the mirror, and I'm saying this looking at myself on the screen, I don't mean to do that intentionally, but when you do that, and you actually say to yourself, you know what? Whoever I am, Bob, Ben, Michael, all these guys, none of you guys did anything wrong in your life. You just didn't know how to win big time because it's fucking hard. Everybody's in your way, and you're in massive, massive chaos points. Let yourself just be forgiven and say, you know what? I did my fucking best, man. It's all right. Whatever. When you say that to yourself and you actually believe it, you actually firmly connect with this idea that you're in the very beginning of a new existence. And you really feel free of yourself, your false expectation, the misery it might be putting you on, the people that might be holding you to false expectations. And you say to yourself, the beginning is right now. I did my best. I know a lot more than I did in the past. I'm going to do a hell of a lot better right now. Let's fucking go. And that's how I firmly live my life. I always live my life in the center point of the present. And I allow the past to just be a moment in time. And I allow the future to be an opportunity. And as I say, an opportunity to dominate. Because it's all the game you create for yourself in your mind. Because nobody's stuck in the past, literally. Everybody's always in the present. It's all about what you allow your mind to think and how you put your mind into a present place to exist in a much better, happy place. And that's it, really. And that's really it. And Guns in the house. What up, brother? My guy. Shark in the gun. Let's go. Guns, you know I love that fucking play tonight. That's why I retweeted you. You fucking dog. Line functionality, the gun, 2-unit banger. Let's fucking go. And appreciate you, THC Jack. Appreciate you so much, man. 29, Benjamin Rash, my guy. Big dogs. Only account 123, Pablo Escobar. What's up, brother? Appreciate you, man. And you know, I won't go further on that point, but that is the truth. That is the truth. We all have the ability to be here right now and create our own existence. That's it. Let the past be the past. Take from it what you need as a person, and let's move on. 0.0 right now. Let's move on. And let's keep going. LBCC, what up, brother? Account 123. What happened between you and Jay? I don't want to go into it. It's been detailed in the past. I will say this. This is all I'll say on it. Jay told me one day via text he didn't want to work with me anymore, and I never heard from him ever again. That was it. So I didn't cut him off. He cut me off, and he never responded ever again. So that's it. So now we're on to much more connected, communicative things that I think are far more decent and prosperous. And I will never say any regret on that because I actually really do love the shows with Jay. I love Jay as a person. I think he's just, I don't know what he's doing. He just, it is what it is. So no big deal on that. But the Gun and I are now fully engaged. Gun's in the chat. We got top plays this week, big time plays. I will say this, and I said this the other night, but the Gun needs to know this, and he's live, and I'll say this right here because this is how fucking much I love this guy. The Gun is a fucking big dog. The guy is a fucking legend. He's so goddamn talented. He's so sharp. I love him to death. Gun, you're my fucking guy. And you're fucking super talented, bro. You're super talented. So let's fucking move. Let's move. And Yamal knows what's up. No doubt. No doubt. Shark and the Gun, baby. 2 words, the Gun. Shots fired. Let's go. And yeah, official play today. We're going to be on here. I think Guns and I will be on here as usual at 7 o'clock Thursday night. That is 18 hours from now, but we will be on here. I'm already on the Bears at +7. I got that Tuesday morning. I knew it was going to move. I think the Guns, you're in the chat? You looking at the Bears? You in there on the Bears? Don't want to give too much away, but the Bears are the spot without question. Without question. Without question. Bear down. Dude, this is such a good spot. It's such a good spot. It's such a good spot. Such a good spot. Bob, I will say this to you. If Guns was on the air, he would say, the Candyman can. Bob, do not be scared of the Bears. If you are thinking logically here, the Bears could have won 2 out of their 4 losses. The team is 0-4 ATS. You never find teams that are 0-4 ATS that could have won 2 of them, not only ATS, but outright. Like, this team is an unbelievable statistical anomaly. The fact that they didn't cover any of those games is ridiculous. I'd be surprised if they didn't win this game, honestly. And it's just such a good spot. We don't want to go into too many details right now, but I mean, I'll give you guys just a snippet of what we're going to talk about. Week 2 on the road at Baker Mayfield and the Bucs, who we also thought the Bucs were not very good back then. The Bucs seem to be slightly better than we thought they were. Justin Fields was down 3 points with the ball inside of 2 minutes and had in his own end pick 6 to give them the cover. That was +4.5, and they lost. And look at last week, 28-7 lead, blew that. It's 2 straight weeks they blew leads with significant margin against the spread in small windows. And it's so statistically anomalous. It's just ridiculous. Like, this is one of those perfect examples of a team that is on the cusp of victory. And Washington is just not the team you want to be laying a touchdown with. You saw in week 1 against Arizona. They didn't cover the spread. They played lackluster. Furthermore, I guess I'm going into the whole detail, but I mean, only 15, 20 people are watching this anyway. But you talk about letdown effect. One of the worst spots in the sport. Divisional game against Philadelphia, overtime game, completely put your energy out there like that, lose the game, come back short week 3 days later against a team that's 0-4. This is the absolute definition of a trap game. Absolute definition of a trap game. Washington laid it all on the line at Philadelphia on Sunday. Overtime game. Coach said they were gassed going into overtime. Left it all out there. Now they got to come back against a bottom feeder and show up. And they didn't show up against a bottom feeder in week 1 and cover either. Anyway, they were 20-16, non-cover on a +7, same line. It's going to be a tight game, guys. It's going to be a tight game. Tight game. Tight game. And, one other point that I think is very important. Go back to last year. The only time, and this is a really interesting point that I'm not sure if Gunn's got, but I'm sure he will. The only time that Justin Fields has played in prime time on the road outside of the division in his career, he played at the Patriots last year. Prime time, out of the division. 33-14 win outright as a +7 dog. It's where he performs well. This is a great spot. I wouldn't be playing it otherwise. It's a great spot. Yeah, count 1, 2, 3. I think you're going to be in a tight one for sure. This is where Fields performs well. He performs well on the road outside division in prime time. It's a horrible spot for the Commanders. They left it all out there against the Birds. Demoralizing loss. Hard to bounce back. Hard to motivate. Hard to juice it up. Really tough. Really, really tough spot. I'd venture to say this is the worst spot of the year for the Commanders so far. Week 1 they didn't cover against the Cardinals, but they had the full offseason to prepare. This is basically the same thing. Lackluster opponent in conference, but out of division. And now you have immense fatigue built in, short week off of a really demoralizing loss. I mean, it's just a brutal spot. There's no way around it. Russ B, what up, brother? What's going on, my guy? But this is a really brutal spot. Really brutal spot. Yeah, Bob, I don't think about that. One of the things that leads people astray oftentimes is just the narrative, Just think statistically. It's not about the Bears. It's about a team that is 0-4 ATS and has been very close in 2 of the 4 and very close in their only out-of-division road matchup with an outlierish play to get them to a non-cover. So statistically, they are literally the best buy. And this is the beautiful thing about sports prognostication numerically. It's not about what you saw. It's not about the highlights of the narratives. It's about the numbers and the predictive analytics. This team is actually what you want to buy. When you're betting sports, you don't want to buy the best team. You don't want to buy the team that was good in the past and make you feel comfortable. You always want to buy the team that is statistically coming into a northward direction in terms of their efficiency and has made small mistakes to lead them astray in the small window in the past. Just remember that when you're capping sports, you always want the team that is close, that hasn't shown it. And I've said this for years, and it really irked me when I heard people say this idea, I have to see it first. And I always said to people, and people got pissed off because they can't take criticism apparently. But I said, guys, isn't the whole point of predictive analytics and sports prognostication to know what's going to happen before it happens? Why would you have to see it first? The whole point is you predict it before it happens. And that's what we're doing here. We're telling you this is pretty much their first win of the season. I think they could win this game outright pretty easily, if I'm being honest. They were up 21 points last week to the Broncos and blew it. They were right there against Tampa Bay, ATS, and blew it. It doesn't keep going that direction. If you go back to some of the most historically awful teams in the sport, go back to the Browns in 2008, I believe. Go back to the Lions in 2000, whatever it was, 16. Those teams oftentimes, more often than not in their calendar, just got scorched off the field. The Bears are 0-4. They were tied at halftime, or they were down 1, but basically tied at halftime against the Bears, or excuse me, against the Green Bay, and got blown out in the second half. They were down 3 points inside of 2.5 minutes against Tampa Bay and didn't cover on a pick six on their own end. And they were up 28-7 against Denver. So this is not your 0-16 Lions. This is not your 0-16 Browns. This is a team that has made small window mistakes that came back to just burn them at the highest level, not only in terms of winning, but also ATS. And within statistical evaluation of pro football, most of the time, when things burn you, they burn you to lose the game because the games are so close in the margin, not to lose ATS. And that's a really crucial point. When you go 0-4 ATS, or they're actually 0-3-1, they pushed against Denver, you're not supposed to run bad against the spread as an underdog because the other team just keeps getting the number. What that's called is a public heater. When the public keeps getting to the number, they're on a heater. Straight up is a different environment. So this team is just an absolute high-level statistical purchase point here, guys. Huge. Ben Stevens, 100%, brother. And you see these cappers all over Twitter saying, I got to see it first. And you see, it's not so much cappers. Well, it's both, but it's guys on shows. And they'll say, I got to see it first. And I mean, like, I'll sit here and I'll say, like, I'm not going to bet the game, but I will not say I have to see it first. I will say, like, I have apprehension. They're incapable. This line is probably the incorrect line by Vegas. Therefore, I don't like the averaging. But I will never say I have a good idea, but I have to see the idea come to formulation and transparency first, because that's what guys say. And I'm like, guys, that's the whole point of the craft. That's the industry we're in. You don't have to see it happen. You predict it to happen. And when guys say that, I'm like, I'm off. I'm off it. Like, I'm done. So mind-blowing shit sometimes. Imal, 100%. The recency bias of the Bears will steer people away without question. And I just detailed why you should be staying on the course. Benjamin Rash, great point. Atlanta first 4 last year, 4-0 straight up in ATS, lost 0-4 games. Amazing sell in week 5. 100%. And this is where people are fading this team because they just become so warped into this, flawed mindset that the Bears are terrible. And, this is the insanity of sports. Certain times in small windows, things go awry. Statistics always clean themselves up. And it's just an ongoing fact of life. Statistics clean themselves up. Outliers do not sustain. Outliers are outliers for a reason, because they're not functioning to normalization of a long-term average. And the Bears are not really functioning anything other than an outlier, and they're going to come straight back to their average, which is pretty competent against the spread. And this is where they're going. There's no way around it. I mean, Bob, 6 or 7.5. I think I have 7 at 120. I got that 3 days ago on FanDuel. I get that in Pennsylvania. I'm down here in Florida, but a couple of my guys are up there, so we have a lot of conversations on a nightly basis, what the line is, what's going on, the whole thing. But I don't really think you're in a deficit point. I will say this: the margins to buy half points are very small, especially when you're up there. What are you looking at? 10 to 15 points. Guns said this. Guns and I were talking about this pre-show in college football. We're so willing to lay 130, 145 in baseball, but for whatever reason, it's become a huge narrative point in basketball and football that if you buy a half point for like 10 points of juice, you're just like so disrespectful to your bankroll. I disagree. I think if you're getting a key number in football particularly, there's no shame in laying 10 to 15 points. We bet baseball in the same format. And baseball is literally up to 150, 165 if the reverse point In baseball, if money line positive is 165 and plus 1.5 is like, minus 160, you're juiced on both sides of the 1 point gap. Just what it is. So the point is, we're betting this 365 across 4 or 5 sports. Never overthink buying a point or a half point for 10 to 15 points in football. Never, ever. It's the same endeavor. So just no problem. No way. Yeah, no way. Not a problem at all. At all. Yeah, take a sip of water here, guys. Yeah, I saw the buyback to 6. It was at 7, and then it came down, or it was actually at 6.5, 7. And again, the FanDuel was at 120. I was able to get that, but it was at 7. It came down to 5.5. And I think this always happens in football, more so than other sports, because people will buy back on a line. Like there's a lot of people that just buy lines. They don't really situationally analyze the game from any sort of psychological perspective. The teams, what they're doing, where their ATS dispersion is moving, theoretically going up as opposed to down. Like if you guys listen to different guys, I I I would never encourage you to listen to them in terms of advice, but it's pretty mind blowing sometimes to listen to other handicappers and how they handicap stuff, where they would actually just be so unbelievably public in their evaluation of things. And they just say, like, this team's 0-4, that the line was at a certain point. Now we get a buy on a short line on a bad team. Like, we're talking like the squarest possible stuff. And it's also just like it's lacking respect to the craft from the standpoint that they're not even looking at the game. They're not looking at what's going on with this team. They're not understanding like how they lost or why they lost or how, statistically how it's functioning on a graph. It's just very, very square stuff. And there's so many square handicappers in the sphere that are just really misleading people. And this is where I get myself into sometimes hot water with people because I will say that and guys will get annoyed. And it's like, no, I'm just speaking the truth on your wagers. Like, this is what you're doing. And of course, they get annoyed, but why wouldn't they? Most people when they're doing the wrong thing get annoyed when they're called out. So it just makes complete sense. But the bottom line is this game is a spot, no doubt. No doubt. Yeah, Ben, 100%, no doubt. I mean, it's especially in football where it's like if you're gonna, if you're thinking about your long term craft with the closeness of lines, there's no reason not to buy it up to minus 115 or minus 120, where it's like the smallest of margins. And I think it's so fascinating where people will get so hard on to not pay that. And then all of a sudden, baseball season rolls around for 6 months and they're playing 130, 145, 150, no problem. And it's like, guys, this is all the same thing. Like, what are we doing? You have a problem in one sport, but not, and then it becomes like this illogical, like principle oriented stuff where it's like it's just ridiculous, just ridiculous. Ben says, no offense against guns, but I can't wait until Notre Dame plays the SEC, the big guns, because Notre Dame, they're not as good as they look. um, yeah, no, yeah. Who do they play? Who are they playing? I gotta look it up. Let me pull it up. Michael, good question. I was gonna look up Notre Dame. Um, the gun had New Mexico State tonight. We had not consulted on that, but when I share plays um, from guys I work with, when I share plays, what I mean by that is I'm tailing the plays. So I lost this morning, or whatever you want to call it, with Tampa Bay Rays, and then I won with the gun on New Mexico State. So just for future reference, it doesn't mean it's an official for me. It means that I was looking at it. I'm not official. I'm not doing a show, but I'm tailing. And so when I retweeted Anthony Latino, our guy on the Football Sunday show, I was playing the Rays for 1.25 units this afternoon, and then I was playing the 2-unit spot with the Guns tonight. So that's when I retweet. That's what I'm doing, and what I'm doing with that is more so just the fact that I can't cap every game, every sport, but there are good spots, and these are sharp guys. So I want to put you guys onto the spots. I'm not giving official analysis. So, but the Gun obviously cleaned up, and we ended up profiting on the day because of that. So it's fucking beautiful, and I was fucking hyped for it for sure. Jacksonville State, Michael, great question. Great question. I don't really know what to make of Jacksonville State just because it's obviously their first season in FBS. Obviously, I love Rich Rod. I love like their general template, the roster, the whole fucking thing. I mean, you saw the game. Middle Tennessee was up 23-7, and then just completely melted the game. I don't know. I mean, like I don't think there was a great read on it. I mean, I actually looked at the game and I thought to myself, basically, that's kind of what I thought. I thought there's no read. They've never played, at least I don't think they played in recent history. I could be wrong, but not, in FBS, 1A football. And I just thought to myself, this could be a wild game, and this could be just some bullshit, whatever way. And that's why I got behind the New Mexico State game, because it was a revenge game from last year with a line number. And that you guys know, from watching the show, that's what I like. So that's why I was behind it, and that's why that was the spot. And I'm glad that it came through. I really am, because I thought that was the best spot. As I said, wasn't doing a show. Didn't really want to get involved in terms of, whatever. Sometimes I just like to sit back, sweat a game, put some money on and fucking chill. But just for future reference for you guys, if I retweet a play, it means I'm behind it financially. It's just not my official play, but I condone it, and I'm right there with you guys. So when the Rays tanked this afternoon, I was fucking pissed off. I can't lie. I was pretty surprised by the whole situation there with the Rays. Really surprised. I thought the Rays would show up. I thought Eflin had been very good all season. Obviously, that doesn't translate to the playoffs. I believe that was his first playoff start with the Rays. So, again, we're in the dark, and it's crazy to say sometimes, but sports betting is so interesting, where like a guy could be great all year, and all of a sudden, home start one in the playoffs for a new team, he's terrible. And he was getting rocked the whole game. They were just teeing off on the guy. And that's kind of what happened. So we were out there in the middle of the afternoon. It was gross. You just could sense he had really no control over the lineup at all. They were just teeing off. And yeah, Michael, I agree. 100%. Email, 100%. I agree with you. It's actually funny, but 14-0 in April, capped out. Wild. Michael, no offense taken, bro. I'm not a fan or anything. It's all good, man. No, I agree. We were talking about it in the group chat on Twitter. Franco was, one of their top 5 players, and, just turmoil, pulling him off the roster, all this insanity, I don't want to speculate on it, but it doesn't look good, obviously, in terms of, I guess, younger women and just scandalous, behavioral practices and the whole thing. So not good, not good. And then, obviously, I think it was Brandon Lau got hurt as well. He was one of their best contact hitters. That'll disrupt the middle of your lineup. There's no way around it. And I think it definitely held them back. And, as Imal said, and we were talking about in the group chat earlier, the team only finished what, like, there were 20 games over 500 or less than 20 games over 500. They started the season 14-0 against bottom feeders. And I was talking about it back in April. And I was saying they're beating down bad teams. This team's not that good. And the insanity of it is they barely profited northward off of their 14-0 start for the rest of the season over about 150 more games. They basically did play to almost a 500 average in their win rate after starting 14-0. So you think to yourself, how good were they? And then, of course, as you said, subtract Wander Franco and an injury to Brandon Lau, who's one of their best hitters. There you go. So the team just wasn't that good, honestly. Yeah, no, and I thought you were right there with the Phillies for sure. I wasn't on it, but I definitely thought you were on that with the Phillies, no doubt. I have the Chiefs. Ben, I already played the Chiefs at -5.5. It got steamed down to 4.5. I'm not sure why. I'm right there with you. It's official. -5.5 Chiefs. I'm right there with you, bro. Um, I think the Chiefs are going to blow out the Vikings. No problem. 40 points, 42 to 23 or something. I think this is just hammer. And, I said this before. I will say this on the show on Sunday, but I'll say it now. The Chiefs are highly, highly consistent in what they do against opponent types and league types. They are great at the NFC. They're great. 5-0 ATS last five. They're averaging over 40 points per game. The average line is somewhere between -2 and -7, so it's the exact same range you're seeing here. They just show up for these spots. And I think part of it is the fact that these opponents don't have any matchup data against them. They don't know what they do. The Chiefs are so innovative. They're so fast. Mahomes is so talented. And the Chiefs just run them out of the stadium. Really. I think the Chiefs really going to hammer the Vikings this weekend. Emal, good question. Dodgers D-backs, great question. I don't think the Dodgers are going to lose that series in any context. I think the Dodgers are the class of the league. I think the Braves are right there. Just between general conversation. Not necessarily forecasting what's going to happen, but I do think the Dodgers are due for a title run, and I do think just kind of in terms of like reversal of law of averages when the Braves won the championship a few years ago, that was supposed to be the Dodgers title. And you guys know how I think, at least those of you guys who watch me on a regular basis. I always think to myself, it's going to reverse. So when the Braves steal the Dodgers season where the Dodgers were supposed to do it, why wouldn't the Dodgers steal the Braves season where the Braves are supposed to do it? And it happens like that very often. The Braves put such a great product on the field all regular season. Ronald Acuna is setting all sorts of records. All of a sudden, you get into a series. Say you go in NLCS 7 games. Dodgers, a lot more experience in the playoffs. Probably a better team. I don't know. I think. I agree with you, Michael. It's a great point. There's always a concern. There's always a concern. No team is perfect. I'm speaking more to the fact of just like an energy shift where like when one team wasn't supposed to do it and they got over the hump, and now the other team is not supposed to do it, they'll get over the hump. It happens that way a lot. It speaks to the underdog capacity of psychology, where a lot of times the team that's not really supposed to do it finds a bigger self in the moment, and the favorite just feels pressure and just can't do it. And I think that there's definitely some sort of I think there's a level to that within potentially the NL playoffs this year. Definitely, Ben. Ben, we do. I'm not sure if you have seen the shows. We do shows Thursday, Friday, and Sunday live on here. So tune in tonight, 7 o'clock. We're going to be on there talking Thursday night football. And Friday night we're on here at 7 as well. Sunday morning, 10:30 a.m. NFL football. Yeah, Emal, 100%, bro. Being out there, 100%. Yeah, I'm right there with you. I think your point and what you're saying, I completely agree with you. I just think that there's some element this year where when teams put on for themselves so big in the regular season, it's hard to go in the postseason, especially when you get to the second level in the playoffs. These are the best teams in the sport, and the margins are not that big. They're just not that big. It's funny we talk about these in these chats, and I start to talk myself onto wagers and stuff. But I honestly think the Dodgers could come out of the NL. I really do. I think it's just their time. I think they're kind of lying in the wake almost. Like when you find the Dodgers in an underdog position, not necessarily overexerted in the regular season. I don't know. Yeah. Yeah, it's a great point, Ben. Great fucking point, bro. Great fucking point. I hadn't even considered it tonight, but going forward in the next couple weeks, I think we'll definitely consider that. I appreciate that, man, for sure. Um, Michael, great comment. Robert should win Manager of the Year after losing both Turner and Belly and still win 100%. 100%. 100%. Roster turnover, youthful group. My guy James Outman, what a fucking dog. I mean, just a player. Just a fucking player. Type of guy you just want to back. 100%. Email, great point as well. 100%. Like, talk about such a brutal matchup for them. One of the worst things you ever want to get is a divisional rivalry in the DS. And I know this being a Yankee fan going back in the day. The best teams always have volatility in the 5-game series, too. If there's going to be an underdog that takes you out that's probably less talented, it's when you close the window and you have just this high volatility, small window, high variance point in a 5-game series. And I think that's incredibly, incredibly sharp, Imal, for sure. I think there's a real good chance the Phillies will just juice it up there. For sure. For sure. Not only that, but, when the Braves are sitting on the deck for a week and the Phillies come in super hot, I mean, momentum is real. Being in the flow is very real. Taking time off is oftentimes a detriment to continued success in the playoffs. I think there's a lot of access for the Phillies to go in there. I think you're completely accurate on that. Yeah, not only that, but just a great crowd. I mean, at this point in the playoffs, I think Philly probably has the best crowd left. If we're being really honest, I think Philly has a great crowd. I was down there for the Sixers playoff game. All 3 stadiums are on the same property, Broad Street, like right there. It's a great facility. It's a great atmosphere. People have a great energy about them. And I made the comments to a couple people privately. I know Philly gets a really bad rap for being a shitty, aggressive, antagonistic sports fan base. I was talking to a lot of the guys, very respectful, very insightful. It was no worse than Boston or New York. And I think the way they propped up Trey Turner, in mid-August, and he went on a tear, I think they get a bad rap. And I think baseball playoffs are volatile. I think they have a huge upside here, without question. Ben, good comment. I think the Milwaukee Brewers will show up tonight. Everybody else, I went with the winners. Wait, I thought the Milwaukee Brewers would show up tonight. Everybody else, I just went with the winners. They didn't win, so what are you talking about? You lost me on that one. But obviously the Brewers were in control briefly, and then it all imploded in the 6th. So I don't think you were wrong, but obviously the Brewers, have been mediocre all year. I would say probably the softest division in the National League by a considerable margin. There wasn't really a contender in that entire division all year. I thought the Cubs would get there. They somehow fizzled out, and that was very disappointing for Chicago fans. I was disappointed myself. I like their roster. I like their group. I thought it was a letdown for the playoffs. I think the Brewers were just lackadaisical. I think they were just not a good team, honestly. I think they just got away with it. I think the more surprising was the Twins getting through, because the Twins were, in an equally lackluster division in the AL Central. And they just took care of business on the Blue Jays. Blue Jays were lifeless. And I think that, great question, Imal. I think it's psychological. I think they have the wrong coach. And I think they have a lot of players that are divas. And I think that, one of the things you do when you center your team around these guys like Vladimir Guerrero, Bichette Jr., even Cavan Biggio, who's not like a principal player. But the key point is all sons of players from the 90s. There's a lot of ego there. They all grew up as millionaires. There's a lack of grind in those guys. But I think it's interesting because they're the highest level of saturation of players' sons in a roster, I believe, in all of MLB right now. I think it shows. They just feel like it's coming to them. They don't have to earn it. And I think that's just systematic to being the son of a player. Like you've always had something. The best players oftentimes had nothing. I think they definitely show that. They don't really fight through adversity. They lay down very quickly. Their ability to score with runners in scoring position was horrendous all year, highly accentuated in the playoffs. I think it's mentality. And I think it's psychology. I think it's the wrong manager, the wrong players. I think, again, players like that, I think it's very, very safe to assume the talent is there, but the mental makeup is not there. And it gets so heightened in the playoffs like that, where they're just not ready for the moment. And teams turn up at a much higher level. You're facing the best pitchers on the best teams. Totally different environment. Yeah. Although Austin Rivers he was never supposed to be like an A-list player. I don't know. Like Austin Rivers for me, like I do like his competitive quality, if I'm not going to lie. Like he talks a lot of shit. Like he cares. Like guys like Vladdy Guerrero Jr. and Bo Bichette. Like Bo Bichette, like he doesn't say anything. Like I don't know what his deal is. Like I have no idea. Vladdy's kind of like an ego. He's a little diva. I don't know what's the deal with Austin Rivers. I'm not sure. I always thought that Austin Rivers was obviously going to Duke and coming out the whole thing, but like he was never supposed to be a superstar. I don't know. You got to elaborate on that one for me. Oh man, okay, for sure, bro. But yeah, Imal, I don't know the Austin Rivers comment. I don't know. You got to tell me what you're thinking on that one. But just in general, I mean, like when you look at okay, so here's a great example of this. Of the other side of this, I should say. Golden State Warriors. Klay Thompson, son of Michael Thompson, Lakers. Steph Curry, son of Del Curry, Charlotte Hornets. Two of the best players of all time. 5 championships. Protagonists, grinders. Disciplined as fuck. Go to the other side of this. Vladimir Guerrero Jr. Michael Jordan Jr. All these fucking guys. Who cares, right? Whatever. And obviously Michael Jordan Jr. versus Vladdy is a terrible example, but they just have a diva in them. Steph has no diva. Klay Thompson has no diva. It seems to be sort of arbitrary, like genetic dispersion, like random. Like we never know what athlete's son is going to be so focused and committed, and other guys will just be like super chill. Like what guys will just like get money and be like done with just whatever the fuck. And yeah, Imal, I agree with you. I think he was hyped up at Duke. I do agree with you. I think to a certain degree, that's just the media hyping up Duke players regardless of the situation. I mean, like what Duke player hasn't been hyped over the last, 12 to 15 years, or even going back 30 years, right? So I think to a certain degree, sometimes the media just has to get their story, and they just make these guys bigger than they are. I mean, he had a bunch of big shots at Duke, no doubt. But I mean, like, I think anybody who was looking at the player, I don't know. Like, I never thought that he was going to be huge. Do you think he was going to be huge? I mean, look at guys like J.J. Redick, Grayson Allen. I mean, you go through everybody. Even guys like Brandon Ingram. I mean, Brandon Ingram's a great player, but he's not a 1A superstar. The guy that I'm more curious about than anybody is Zion Williamson coming out of Duke. I just want to see what he's willing to do, really. True, Doc is huge. You're right. He's a coach and the whole thing. 100%. You're right. And it's hard to become a huge dude like that when it's all set for you. Like Doc was. He was a great player. He made a ton of money in the league, and he's a championship coach. So it's like he's kind of chilling. It's hard to be super fired up. I don't think there's ever been a player that had like a wildly successful father figure in the league that just like turned up over his dad. It just doesn't happen. But like, with Zion, on the Duke thing, I'm going to lean back in the chair, gentlemen, for a second here. My back is killing me. I swear these computer chairs are terrible. With Zion, I'm really, really intrigued to see what Zion does this year. I've always loved Zion. I traced him back in high school, and the kid's a fucking absurd athlete. But it's like, where's the mental makeup? Like, what's he doing? What's up? I don't know. And I think we're all trying to figure that out. I don't know if you guys are following Zion, but I'm trying to figure the fuck out. Oh, Ben, I see what you're saying. Yeah, in terms of live streaming during the game. Yeah, no, that's a little difficult. I love the idea, honestly. It's just hard to do, honestly. It's hard to sit there for the entire game and commentate and just whatever. It really is. Like, it takes a lot more energy than you might think, especially when you're like, I can do it. First of all, I love to do it when I'm just doing my own flow and talking to you guys because it's just a good conversation. But if there's a game on and it's more so centric on the game content wise, I don't know. For me, it's my interest just wanes a little bit. I'd rather watch the game and just whatever. But what you're saying, I think, is more so what I think is where I could find people that would do it on the channel, and we could broadcast that and do it like a 3-way or something like that. Because I probably wouldn't do it. It's just not my nature to go on during games. I mean, I could go on there. We could take some Jameson shots and hang out, whatever the fuck. But just to be on there all game and just sort of like the ebbs and flows and almost commentate the whole thing, that's just not my energy. I like to do more of my own commentary and obviously the shows and the whole thing. But I do think you're right. It's a good template. I got to find guys to do it, honestly. Like, I don't know if you guys have any interest. Like, Ben, if you have any interest, you want to go on there, we could put you on the channel. We could like put you on the StreamYard with like 3 of your boys just fucking sitting, shooting the shit. I mean, like, we're building the channel up here, bro. It all starts from the source. Somebody's got to do it. There's always somebody in the wild, and the wild is people like yourself. So, let's build, let's fucking do it, and I know there's a lot of guys like Dave Rogers is a perfect example of this. He loves sitting on there for the games. He sits on there for 3 rounds of college football on Saturday afternoon, no break. He's a dog on that. So that's where there's the preference in content. It's just different, but certain guys are great at it and they love to do it. So. Yeah, Emal. I mean, that's a great point. Emal says Zion's off the court life is very suspect. Basketball is not number one. It certainly seems that way, and I'm confused by it. I will say that because when he was at Duke, he seemed like he wanted to win, and it didn't seem to me, at least at that point, that it was Coach K, RJ Barrett, like making him into a competitor. I felt like he was a natural competitor. I think the league has sucked the life out of him. I think he was drafted with the wrong franchise. I think he wanted to go to New York, which is crazy, but I think he wanted to go to New York. He got stuck in New Orleans. He had, I think, Stan Van Gundy early on in his career. He's always been slightly overweight, not even necessarily lackadaisically overweight. He almost has he has a football player body as opposed to a basketball body. His athleticism is ridiculous. To be 6'7", like 260, dunking out of the gym with massive bounce. I mean, he should be like a D end. He'd be a sick D end. But he's an NBA player. And I think that he's with the wrong franchise, wrong front office, bad coaching, ostracized, media up his ass. In my opinion, too, if you actually listen to Zion, I think he's actually a pretty subdued guy. I think he's a good example of an NBA player getting just hounded by the media, the paparazzi, and just becoming like tyrannized by them, where he just goes like behind closed doors to do his thing. Because it's really difficult for these young kids to just be bombarded by public exposure. And I don't know. I think he's struggled. I think he has maybe hopefully come to a better spot mentally, but I think he's struggled with it, and I think it's not easy to go that route in the NBA. So I don't think Zion's going to wash out. I don't think he's terribly out of shape. I don't think he's negligent. I don't think he's a bad person or a bad player, unprofessional, any of it. I think he just went into a bad situation. I think he struggled a little bit. I think he's coming out, just between us. I think he's coming out. I think he'll be good. Um, Trent says the Braves have to beat Philly first. Correct. Yeah. And we were just talking about it before. We were saying we thought Philly could beat Atlanta, obviously divisional. And Philadelphia notably coasted the regular season. A team goes to the World Series, they come back flat most of the year. That's a coast. There's no way around. It's a coast. You saw what they did. They full business against the Marlins. Full business. Just absolute hammer. I think this team is absolutely turned up, ready to go, and they have the pitching to do it, for sure. And Trent, we were talking about before, but the Braves left it all out there to a certain degree in the regular season. Guys performing huge rate. It's hard to come back, particularly in the division series. In 5 games, anything can happen, particularly when you have good pitchers. Nola's a little sketchy, especially if he gets a road game. Wheeler's generally locked down, particularly within the division. His bad starts usually come outside the division, maybe against the AL, whatever. You're in a good spot. I think Philly's in a good spot, 100%. 100%. Yeah, I think the Dodgers are a better team. I think the Dodgers are a better team, for sure. I would agree with you on that. Yeah, THC Jack. He needs fadeaways and floaters with that strike. I agree, 100%. He's definitely one bounce to the hoop, whether it's up with a left or a spin, reverse, inside or not, with the whole fucking thing, 100%. I agree with you, but you would think that over the course of injuries and time off the court, he would be training, those moves to be a lot more refined around the hoop. And not only that, as you mentioned, fadeaways and floaters. He definitely doesn't have any of that. He reminds me of like a young Dwight Howard, even though, of course, they're different body types. But you remember Dwight back in the day he had no touch with the floaters and the hooks. And they would always, I think he had at least one point where he was being coached by Hakeem Olajuwon in multiple off seasons, trying to figure it out. But it's hard to teach. It's a totally different game. And I think one of the crucial points with it is that it's a mentality shift. And I think it's very easy for us as fans to look at these guys and say, do this, do that, adjust this, adjust that. But, a lot of these guys, they're very young. And they started playing ball when they were 4, 5, 6 years old. They've been doing the same thing ever since. And it led them to professional basketball. So for them to change their entire game, and I will say that, change their entire game, because for an aggressive to-the-hoop type of player, like Dwight Howard back in the day in 2007-8, like Zion Williamson the last 4 or 5 years, they're to-the-hoop players. For them to have some sort of dribble drive pull-up game or dribble drive back to the basket, obviously going on-hand or off-hand game, that's a totally different game for them. It's not aggressive. It's refined. It's touch. And I think it's hard to teach, because it's not only just the actual tactical basketball aspect of it, but it's a total mentality shift for the player. And I think it's just really, really tough. Really tough. Free mind, what up, brother? What's going on, boss? Taking a sip, talking some hoops with the guys, building the channel. Love you guys so much. Cheers to you guys. And Trent, great question. How long have you been capping sports? I think the first time I capped sports was like 2004 or 5, something like that. So it's been about 20 years, and I've gone through the entire gamut. Orioles to win it all. I got the hat for you, brother. I bought this hat for a reason. I bought one hat this summer. There we are. There we are, baby. What's up? Let's fucking go. And I'm right there with you. I bought the hat because I get behind the franchise. I love the team. I love the unit. I think the players are great. The manager is great. The pitching staff is highly underrated. They get ripped everywhere. Just it's unbelievable the mainstream media and how the mainstream media doesn't follow a team at all because they're just supposedly nothing. And then all of a sudden when they're good, they just talk shit about their players. And it just blew my mind when I was listening to the mainstream media how they said they don't have pitchers. Kyle Bradish is a great pitcher. Dean Kramer is a great pitcher. Grayson Rodriguez is a great young pitcher. Tyler Wells is fringe 4. And obviously Gibson is a journeyman at 5, but also a mentor to the group. I could not believe when I listened to national broadcasts saying they need a trade, they don't have players. It just brought me to the center over and over and over and continuously. The mainstream media doesn't even follow sports. And I will continue to say this. The mainstream media doesn't even follow sports. They know nothing about the teams. All they do is know these big players that they sell and they market themselves. So when they have to follow some new team, they just stir up bullshit about the team. And all you heard from the New York market, the Red Sox market, a couple of the big markets within the division, these divisional games about the Orioles, they don't have pitching. And I kept saying to the TV, I'm not talking to anybody, I'm talking to the TV. I'm like, I would say to the TV, I'm like, no, you fucking idiots. You guys just don't know their players. And all you guys think is that because you don't know their players, you didn't study, you don't watch, that they have to go out and sign some old free agent name like you think is the method to become a great team. And it just blows my mind how stupid, illogical, retroactive, caught in the past most mainstream commentators are. They don't follow teams. They don't know the players. The players are great. And they're like, oh, they got to go out and sign this old hat. It's like, guys, we're not playing fantasy sports from 4 years ago. This is contemporary baseball. This is what's going on right now. You're late to the party. You're ignorant. You're just telling false stories at all points in time. And it blows my mind. It blows my mind. I like the Orioles in all contexts. That's why I bought the hat, honestly. The two teams that I'm rooting for in the playoffs, I'm rooting for the Orioles in the AL, and I'm rooting for the Phillies in the NL. I want to see a Phillies-Orioles World Series. So I'm right there with you, bro. Right there with you. Yeah, the series price is interesting. I don't think there's anything to make on that. I think it's short, obviously, when you look at a 1C, but I don't think it's hard. I think it's kind of ambiguous to read from that standpoint. I agree with you 100%. The rivalry would be so sick. It's. I don't even know. Like, obviously, like in my lifetime, it hasn't been a rivalry. It's been a long time since these teams really went at each other, if ever. I mean, you guys can probably enlighten me on that. I don't know if there was ever a big moment between the Phillies and the Orioles, but regionally speaking, we're talking like right down the street, basically. I think it would be amazing, absolutely amazing. And as I said, I'm rooting heavily for the Orioles and I'm rooting for the Phillies. Not only that, but I just like Northeastern baseball. I like the fan bases. I like just the energy behind the teams. I just like the young teams. Obviously, Philly's not super, super young. Some young pieces, Alec Bohm, Bryson Stott, a couple of these guys, whatever. But I do love the Orioles group. I love the Orioles group for sure. Yeah, yeah. Trey Turner's a dog, no doubt. He was terrible for like 2/3 of the season. The Philly fan base gave him like a pep talk, like which is absurd, and he like just popped like immediately. It's just such a beautiful showcase of the psychology of sports. He was just super insecure in the new market. He couldn't find it. They gave him some power with a cheer and like a chant, and all of a sudden he was great. So I mean, it was unbelievable to see like the Philly fan base just build the guy up and then him react that profitably for them. Um, he is a winner without question. Without question, he's a great player, great hitter. I think he's very unaffected in the mind generally. I think he hit a wall emotionally probably for the first time in his career, the first half, and it's great to see him come out of it. I think he's generally pretty free on that, but he definitely hit a wall, which is good to see him come out of that. No doubt, no doubt. I'm looking at what Ben's saying here. I wasn't following. Louisiana Senate. Not sure what he's talking about here. Not sure what he's talking about. Yeah, I'm not sure who we're talking about here. We went from the Orioles to a Senate race or something. I'm going to take a sip on that, guys. Cheers to you guys. Appreciate you guys. We'll see where we are here. Let me look at what's going on here. Let me pull up a couple scores. I think that one of the things that I was taking away from it, which I thought was pretty crazy actually, is the fact that every single first round matchup in MLB was a sweep. Like, I think that is very surprising. And I don't know what to make of it, honestly. I certainly didn't see the Rangers sweeping on the road. I didn't see any of it, to be honest with you. The only one that I thought was probably going to come up, I thought the Phillies had a chance to sweep. And other than that, I'm shocked at both of these outcomes, or all three of the other outcomes. So, just wild, honestly. Sorry guys, I had to exit ESPN. ESPN always streams commercials, and it's just so obnoxious. Like, I had to. That's why I wasn't talking for a second, because I had to fucking cancel their shit and click out of the stupid thing before it started to blast arbitrary music over the broadcast. Um, no, I think wild card probably should be best of three, Amal, because I think that it gets to a point where, first of all, the season is long enough where it should differentiate itself. And I think, one of the things about college football that has always been, an arguable point is, should there be bigger of a playoff? And they would always say that no, because the regular season matters. So when your schedule act like the regular season matters, you'll get to the playoffs. Of course, in college football, it wasn't exactly like that. So whatever. But I think in baseball, if we want to be really honest with it, they play enough games where you're playing everybody now. It's not so divisional centric. There's so many out of division matchups across both leagues where, if you don't have a good record, you don't really deserve to get to the next round. The buys in baseball now are deserved. They're earned. So I think the first round, if you don't have the record for it, that's what you get. And, you got to perform in the regular season. And you have a long enough time to do it. I mean, you get 6 fucking months. And I mean, I think that, the Padres are a great example of this, where the Padres were literally in the NLCS last year. They came back this season and coasted the regular season. They didn't win any one-run games. They backdoored the season. They won like 80% of their final 25 games, but it was just too little too late. They're too young. They're too paid. They're too sexy. They're too glamorous, the whole fucking thing. They just didn't show up for the season. So they didn't get into the playoffs, but they didn't deserve it. And, it's with these teams, they just don't deserve it. You don't have to, give them something that they didn't earn ultimately. And, yeah, I mean, just unbelievable. 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 Anyway, guys, we're winding down here. I think we're the only people in the chat here and been on here for 90 minutes. Gonna wrap it up. I usually target about an hour to an hour and 30 in here. Appreciate you guys so much for interacting. Got the hat on. Love the Orioles. Love you guys so much. And I appreciate you guys so much for sticking around. And not only that, but engaging and building this with us. We're going to build a new channel, and it's going to be just a great thing across the board. It's a new camera angle. It's something I'm not used to. I'm trying to play music, but music is tough with the regulations and the whole thing. So it is tough to play music. I love music, and I oftentimes want to play it, but I can't do it. So appreciate you guys so much. Iman, my guy, big time energy. Trent, Big Dogs, Ben Stevens in the house, bunch of guys in the chat throughout this hour and a half, and I know it's the realest people in the world. We're having just the deepest level of conversation, and it's awesome. So, Michael, I appreciate you. Chad Moody, I appreciate you, bro. All you guys, tell your friends about it. Tell them to come in here to Sharky Waters Nation, YouTube, for the chats, for the life, the energy, and the respect. And it's all respect and love, guys. I appreciate you guys so much. We'll be on here at 7 o'clock tonight with the first NFL broadcast of the week. We are on the – who are we on? I'm thinking about it. We're on the Bears. We're on the fucking Bears. We're on the Bears. And a +7 midweek. And it's a great spot. I'm going to have a beer, going to wind down, and we're going to absolutely dominate coming forward through the next period of months, years, and decades. So much love and respect to you guys. Send you guys the best vibes. Beautiful chat, beautiful life. Sharky Waters Nation. 9 words of lifestyle. Ride the wave and ground the water. Let's fucking go.